As the war with Iran nears the one-month mark, the patience of some of America's allies is wearing thin, with some European leaders calling for an end to the war, including Spain's prime minister, who earlier today said, quote, "It is not fair that some people are setting the world ablaze whilst the rest of us are left to swallow the ashes." Meanwhile, France's army chief called the USA, quote, an unpredictable ally, and said the U.S.'s actions are impacting France's security. That's in contrast to the message we heard from the NATO Secretary General this weekend. Listen.
I know there is a lot of debate in the US and in Europe whether this campaign of the president against Iran was necessary. And let me tell you, it is. It is crucial that the president, that the US is doing this.
Joining me now is Sweden's Chief of Defense and Supreme Commander of the Swedish Armed Forces, Michael Claesson. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on the program. Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate your being here. I want to start off by getting your big picture view of the war with Iran. President Trump has argued that Iran did pose an imminent threat, quite frankly, to global security. Do you believe that Iran posed an imminent threat?
I think that Iran definitely poses a threat to the global community, and we all know about the axis between Russia and Iran, and Russia, Iran, and North Korea, for example, which definitely poses a threat to global security. In what order to address that, it's not my thing to decide, of course, but it's just a fact that this axis exists.
Part of the president's justification for the war, and I'll just quote for you a little bit of what he says, is that Iran was developing weapons that could, quote, target our very good friends and allies in Europe, as well as U.S. troops overseas. Did Sweden have that perspective, that Iran could potentially target it?
Not really, but we have seen some evidence in the last couple of weeks that they actually have the capability. To what extent and with what sustainability you can always discuss, but that they definitely have these long-range capabilities and opens up a new vector, so to speak, against also targets in Europe. That's more or less a fact too, I would say. But again, I mean, we have been very focused on Russia and are still very focused on Russia. So in that regard, of course, again, going back to the axis between those countries. Well,
and I do want to ask you about Russia in just a moment. There's been a lot of talk about whether there can be diplomatic discussions. President Trump says that the U.S. is talking to Iran. We have reporting that the U.S. has, in fact, submitted a 15-point plan. Do you think diplomacy is possible, and do you think it's possible in this moment?
Well, to be honest, I think that diplomacy always must play a role simultaneously with military action. From my perspective, it's never either or. It's always both. The main effort can be on one or the other aspect, of course, but both have to be in play.
I spoke with President Trump a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he was reaching out to NATO allies, asking for your help to secure and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. He's expressed frustration in the wake of that more allies have not come forward. Does Sweden have any intention to play a role in reopening the strait?
Well, we are open for anything that could contribute to a de-escalation, and also going back to sort of the free movement, freedom of navigation through international straits, including the Hormuz. So I guess that if there are any approaches made through the NATO system or bilaterally, we would be open to discuss that.
So you would be open to potentially help, but Sweden hasn't made any commitments at this point in time.
No, we have not.
Are you saying? Okay. I want to just get your broad reaction to what we've heard from President Trump recently about NATO. He's called NATO a paper tiger, quote, cowards, and I want to play you a little bit of what we've heard from him. Take a listen.
In the case of NATO, they don't want to help us defend the strait, and they're the ones that need it.
NATO could help us, but they so far haven't had the courage to do so.
What is your reaction when President Trump makes these comments about NATO? Does it undercut the alliance?
Well, I think that to start with, I can only speak from a Swedish military perspective and certainly not comment on foreign political leaders' commentary on the alliance or anything else, basically. But I can assure anyone that wants to listen that well, Sweden and Swedes are no cowards, and we have proven that in international operations over decades, also together with NATO and together with our American allies, shoulder to shoulder.
Do you think those comments impact European leaders?
Well, in many ways, of course, it does, but it also makes us think twice to what extent we actually are in need of focusing on more aspects and more threats than only sort of the ones that directly affects us, which is very often, again, only Russia.
Let me ask you, because Spain's prime minister earlier today, and we were talking about Russia, your focus on Russia, claimed that Russia has made 8 billion euros, which is some $9 billion from increased energy prices since the start of the war. Do you believe that Russia is benefiting right now from
indeed,
this
yes.
war?
And indeed, of course, they do. They already run a sort of a wartime economy. They have increased their production capacity with regard to missiles and drones and so on and so forth. And this will be an injection of energy into to their war economy.
You are very focused on the war in Ukraine as well, trying to bring that conflict to an end. How does the war in Iran impact the efforts to try to bring the war in Ukraine to an end, do you think?
I think one concern that we all share in the military community globally, or at least in the West, is, of course, security of supply. We know that we need the same type of weapon systems up and running for deterring Russia in Europe and in the Arctic. We know that we need the same type of weapon systems to continue to support Ukraine, to underpin their ability to defend themselves. And of course, the war and the operations in the Middle East requires even more. So all this together needs a balancing and needs to be weighed against the production capacity of the defense industrial base in the West.
And the defense industrial base, and then there's also the space to actually try to have global leaders work towards bringing an end to the war in Ukraine. Do you have concerns that the focus has shifted to Iran and that could potentially prolong the war in Ukraine?
I think that politically, and if I may say that also in this context, that media very often has focused on one thing at a time. So obviously it takes focus away from Ukraine, this is something that we need to keep in mind. We need to keep the balance and focus on which countries, which axes are actually playing the strategic play simultaneously.
And you were just in Ukraine. What do you want the world to know about Ukraine and what's happening there right now?
I had the chance to travel 3,000 kilometers. I don't know how much that is in miles, but 3,000 kilometers by car throughout Ukraine. I met with several, maybe tens and 20s of military leaders. But the most important thing was to get my own perception of the atmospherics in the country. And my main conclusion is it's not a broken country. They are tired for obvious reasons, but it's not a broken country. So we need to maintain focus on more than one problem.
All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your perspective.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Please come back soon, Michael Claesson. Appreciate your time today. Coming up after the break, a hotly anticipated verdict finding Meta and YouTube liable in a case that could have sweeping implications for the tech industry as a surprise humanoid guest raises eyebrows at the White House. You do not want to miss this video. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Meet the Press now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.